Are you starting a business? Do you need a lawyer? That and more today on Cash Flow. Hi, I'm Jason Waters, CEO of JW Financial Group, and welcome to Cash Flow, where we talk about the number one goal of your small business, which is to create cash flow. With us today is my friend and attorney, Lee Davis. Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Welcome. I'm just going to dive right in if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right, tell us a little bit about your career and how you got started in law. I mean, obviously law school, but just tell us what you did.
Well, I've worked at all different types of law firms. I started out at a small firm where it was just me and two other lawyers. I was the low man on the totem pole, so I got to do a little bit of everything at that time. And then I joined I would consider it a larger firm. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably considered a medium firm. But I joined that firm in Marietta, and I practiced there for a few years until I decided that I was done working for somebody else. And so I started a firm of our own with a friend of mine, and we did that for about 9 years or so, and then decided that it was time to move on. And now I'm a solo practitioner, and I love it.
Okay. So how did you figure out you wanted to be a lawyer?
Actually, it's a pretty interesting roundabout story. I did an entire podcast of my own on it, and it's episode 4 on mine, which is called The Legalist, and it's the whole story of how I found the law and how the law found me. So.
I look forward to watching it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Should I hire a lawyer for my small business?
Well, my answer is yes, and we'll pivot to Lee here in a second, but I've seen so many clients that try to go online and create their own documents, and they are operating a business in Georgia and they have California documents, and it just doesn't work out so well from a legal perspective. So I want to let Lee answer that question though.
Well, there's several different types of business entities that a small business can choose when they start, from just being a solo practitioner, which is you are the business, to a partnership. If you have, if you and I were partners and we own the business together, it could be a partnership. But if we decided that we wanted to have some type of insulation, some legal insulation from the business and us, and protect our assets and ourselves from potential liability, we might choose one of the legal entities that are recognized, such as limited liability partnership, limited liability company, and an incorporation. So those are the 3 primary ones. There's a few other ones out there, but it just depends on what type of business you're going to be doing and what you really need that business form for. And a lawyer could tell you which one is right for you, given whatever it is your business is going to be. So I think it's important that they talk to somebody even before they form a business entity, because they may, as you said, do it themselves, which forming the entity is very easy. You just go on the Secretary of State's website and literally it walks you right on through it. It's documenting it right, and especially if you're going to have other people in the business other than you definitely need to talk to a lawyer in advance about what exactly you need to protect you and protect your partners and protect your assets and things like that.
You know, something I thought of, Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind.
Right.
And so every business has an end. And so if you have a partner, it's either you're selling it or you pass away or something's going to happen. But if you have a partner, it's harder to document that once you're in the middle of your business as opposed to the front end.
That's exactly right. And being a litigator, I tend to approach things with the worst case in mind. I'm always dealing with worst case scenarios in most of the cases that I deal with. So when I sit down with people from the very beginning, I'm thinking, all right, I want to do this in a way, I want to set this up for them in a way that they are prepared for the worst case scenario if it comes along.
Yep, that's great advice.
If I have a business partner, is it wise to hire a lawyer for my small business?
That's an easy answer. Yes, you should. There are so many complications that could come into play in terms of who's taking what distribution, or how are you going to sell the business in the end. I've seen more problems than not when it's not documented properly, and you need an attorney to do that. So let Lee talk a little bit more about it.
Well, especially if you're going to choose a business entity, such as a corporation, a limited liability partnership, or a limited liability company. What you want to have is, for a corporation, you would want to have a shareholder agreement. For a limited liability company or a limited partnership, you're going to have a operating agreement. The operating agreement and shareholder agreement are roughly the same thing, just because there's differences in the business form. They are just called different things. But basically what you do with these documents is you set out exactly who's going to get what money at what time, what if the partners disagree, who gets to make the business decisions and how those are made, any limitations on the person who's going to be running the business, and in some cases it also deals with dissolution. Like, what do we do when we decide we don't want to be partners anymore? And that helps to it just helps make everything smoother. It's well documented, and you don't have to go into a lawyer's office at some point and say, my partner and I are getting along, and he thinks he's entitled to more money than I am, and we can't get this hammered out. Those are the worst case scenarios. That's why I say, come see me or somebody like me first. Let's put it all out in an operating agreement. Then you don't have to worry about it later on.
There's so many folks that say, well, we're not going to have that problem. We're not going to not get along. I mean, with the divorce rates as high as they are in the country, this is a person you're not even married to.
That's exactly right. And breaking up a business is very much like breaking up a marriage. It has a lot of the same emotions involved. A lot of times there's feelings of trust and betrayal. Just a lot of similarities with a divorce. There's a lot of emotion involved. It can be a very difficult time, and if you don't have the things properly documented from the beginning, you're really only making your situation worse. And you're absolutely right. People will always think it can't happen to me, but I promise it can. I was in business with a very good friend of mine, and it happened with us. It's just the way that it happens.
How is it different being a business entity versus a sole proprietor?
Operating as a business entity versus a sole proprietorship, there are a lot of different ramifications for that. There's legal, how you treat accounting, how you treat taxes, if you borrow money, what the difference is. So from a tax standpoint, you're either choosing that I'm going to be taxed on a personal level, or I'm going to be taxed like a C corporation on a corporate level. So there's some implications there. There are some industries that you may want to have a fiscal year end that is different than a calendar year end. And so in that case, that's going to drive your business entity. Depending on what partners or how many partners you have is going to drive your business entity. There are limitations with some types of entities in terms of how many partners you can have. Are you going to raise outside capital? That's a function. So there are a lot of things that go into it. What I'd like to ask Lee about is the legal perspective.
Well, one of the things I see more often than anything else is people that have done everything right up until a certain point, and then they execute a contract wrong. When you have a business entity, the whole point is to isolate yourself or to insulate yourself from liability on a contract on a personal level. So if you are going to enter into a contract or a loan or anything like that, you're going to want to enter into that contract in the name of the company. So if you were, say, Jason Waters Incorporated, when you go to sign a loan document that is for business, you're going to want to sign it as president of Jason Waters Incorporated. That is a representative capacity on behalf of the corporation. So guess what? If you sign it just Jason Waters and don't do it in a representative capacity, Jason Waters is the one that just took out the loan. Now, speaking in actual business sense, no bank is going to loan you money without you having a personal guarantee. But you sign all kinds of contracts on behalf of a corporation that won't have personal guarantees. Sometimes you'll sign up for television service for your office, or phone service, or with a copier company, or just whatever myriad, hundreds of contracts your company is going to need just to operate. And you need to make sure, one, that the corporation is properly named in the document, and in the end, when you're signing, you sign it in a representative capacity. That is Jason Waters Incorporated by Jason Waters, president. That comma is extremely important.
Something no one would ever think about.
I thank God they don't, because it keeps me in business.
That's all we have for today on Cash Flow. Thank you, Lee, for coming in.
Absolutely.
How can folks find you?
Well, they can find me on social media under Lee Davis Law, and they can also find me on YouTube under Lee Davis Law, and my podcast, which is called The Legalist.
You can find me at Jason Waters or #Cashflow. Until next time.